Tony, I think you're up first. Tony Kennedy is a candidate for re-election for the Board of Assessors.
Yes, I am.
Let's see.
Oh, I should take this Saturday.
Unless you're forgetting.
Hi, I'm Tony Kennedy, and I have been on the Board of Assessors in Norfolk for the past 3 years, and I'm interested in re-upping, going for another 3 years. My wife, Jill Kennedy, and I moved to Norfolk about 6 years ago, and I've always been interested in public service. We came from a town called Stoneham, up by Woburn. Anybody know Stoneham? And in Stoneham, I had quite a bit of experience in public service, running for positions in the town. For example, I started on what we called in Stoneham, the Finance and Advisory Board. It's similar to the advisory board in Norfolk. I ran with that for 9 years. I got this thing in my head that I wanted to be a select person. So I ran for selectman, ran 3 times. So I served the town as a selectman for 9 years. And subsequent to that, I went on the Board of Assessors. So I have 9 years also on the Board of Assessors. Coming to Norfolk, I said, gee, I'd like to do something for this town. I like this town. So when the opportunity came up, I ran for the assessors 3 years ago. But there I am again. I view the role of the Board of Assessors as a key one. Mainly because the amount of taxes that we raise, that the town raises, is something like 70% of the budget. So all the taxes combined is about $40 million in Norfolk, and the budget is about $56 million. So it's about 70%. And I think it's important to have oversight and understand the process so that people don't feel they have an understanding of why their taxes are the way they are and what your tax money is used for. So that's why we go to town meetings to learn those things. Fortunately, the staff in town hall is very competent. There's a full-time chief assessor, Don Clark. There's an assistant assessor who's full-time, Chris Minnow. And there's a part-time person as well. And so it makes the Board of Assessors look good because they do a tremendous job in the office. And they know how to run the numbers. And in case people didn't know, I'll just share this one other thing. The Board of Assessors is regulated by the State Department of Revenue. So every calculation that the Board of Assessors makes has to be approved by the Department of Revenue. So when it comes to raising taxes, how you got to that number, what your tax rate is, all has to be reviewed and approved by the Department of Revenue. So no one town can just arbitrarily do something that's outside of the boundaries of the law. So, and that's good to know. But the trick is to know how to do it, and how to comply, and how to be equitable to everybody in town. So, that's the reason I'm running, and look forward to your vote. Unopposed.
Great. I have a couple of questions for you. So, you were an assessor in Stoneham.
On the Board of Assessors.
Board of Assessors in Stoneham.
Yeah.
Obviously more commercial development in Stoneham than in Norfolk. Can you speak for a minute, and these questions, you don't have to give long answers to these if you don't want. I have 2 or 3 questions for you.
Okay.
In terms of the residential versus commercial tax base in town, what do you see as the role of assessors in managing rates and other balance between residential, which we primarily are, and commercial?
Well, the short answer is town meeting decides. So if you're going to charge the commercial people a higher tax rate than the residential people, town meeting has to approve. And in Stoneham, we certainly did. We did charge industry, I don't remember, it varies by year depending on what the sentiment is. But oftentimes they would pay 30% more taxes than the residential people would. And it was a way of stabilizing residential taxes by charging the businesses a little bit more.
There's an ever-growing number of possible exceptions to tax assessments for veterans, for folks over 65, for low-income folks. Where do you think Norfolk stands in terms of the exceptions that they've adopted? Do you feel that that is providing for folks that need some relief well in town, or do we need to go after some more of those exceptions that are available to the community?
It seems to me that the community as a whole is certainly taking advantage of what's available. There are a fair amount of retirees. To get any tax relief on your home real estate tax, if you're a retired person and your income is low or whatever, you have to be able to demonstrate that your income is less than what the state says it can be. And I believe it's really small. It's something like $25,000 a year. And for that reason, not everybody who's old and retired can get one of those, because not everybody makes that kind of money. Most people tend to make more than that.
Last question for you. What is your approach when either residents or businesses come to you seeking an abatement on their taxes?
Again, the answer is that the cycle calls for a cutoff date of January 31st. So when we get our Christmas present of the taxes, they get adjusted for the fiscal year that you're in, which ends on June 30th. At Christmas time, typically you will get a bill that straightens out, that tells you what the real taxes are. The other 6 months are estimated taxes. So the answer is that you do have until January 31st. And if you miss that deadline, it's tough. You have to wait until next year.
So beyond the deadline element of it, what are you looking for from applicants? How do you approach when someone is applying for an abatement? What is your own personal approach to folks that come to you for abatements? And technical, I know that they're all different, but how do you approach it? What is your process for doing that personally as a member of the board?
The answer is that the staff in the office in Town Hall will do the research and will evaluate whether that person needs or is entitled to an abatement. And the primary tool that they have is to go out and inspect the property. And sometimes people say, oh, my taxes are too high, I need an abatement. They don't give a reason why, and they won't let the staff in to look at their home. So what's the staff supposed to do? It's based on home value. So if the employees are not allowed into your home to check things out, then you won't get the abatement.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for volunteering your time to this town. candidate for the open seat on, as a member of the Board of Library Trustees. Thanks, Jay.
I'm Brian Michkowski. As he just mentioned, I'm running for library trustee. I was born in Wisconsin, but Norfolk is the town I've lived in the longest as an adult. I went to college at the Air Force Academy and got to travel all over the country and the world as part of my Air Force career, including Georgia, Ohio, DC, Germany, and Boston ultimately. We lived here. I was commuting on the commuter rail like so much of us up to Boston until COVID happened, and now I work from home. I retired from the Air Force in 2022 and co-founded my own tech company where we do data analytics for sports, which is pretty interesting. I've been on the advisory committee here in town for the last 6 years, going through the budget and seeing the cycle go through some different changes, and we're in a pretty good budgetary squeeze right now. So we've seen how the town has gone through that. But the other part of the town that I've seen on advisory committee is part of the master plan. And there's a lot of discussion about what's going to happen right here in the B1 district and what the future of the town will look like. That's part of why I want to be on the library trustees, is when we look at where the master plan is going, we want to make the center of town the center of the community. And this building is far more than a collection of books, right? This building is our community center. That's why we're having this meeting right here, is because it is our town community building that we can share this space in. And I'm interested in continuing to serve the town in a different way and being part of the library trustee, especially in this exciting period of time where we're going to be seeing hopefully so much revitalization downtown here. How can we turn this building, this resource, into what it needs to be in the next step for our town? I encourage you to lend me your vote on voting day, but I as well am running unopposed. But happy to take any questions.
Sure. So full disclosure, I probably begged Brian back in the day to join the advisory committee and have begged him to stay on the advisory committee all these years. It is a heavy lift. Okay, so a few questions for you. You've served capably on the advisory committee for a number of years. Why change and come over to the library? What is new, or what is the challenge that you're trying to take on?
So the thing that is maybe baked into my personality now, having been in the military, like I said, I've moved every 3 years for the last 20 years of my life, is always trying to have a different challenge and continue to serve in different ways. Another part, most of that time I was a reservist, so I had a regular job and then always was giving back through military service. And I look at that now that I'm retired as my contribution back into the community, being on the advisory committee, and now moving into this role. So I looked across the different ways to contribute back into town and to participate in the community. And as we've had those discussions on the advisory committee around the way that this downtown area will develop, I really think that the community part is very strong, and this building and the resources the library provides should be the anchor of our community. From how do we take that and move it out to Town Hill in the morning or in the summers with the bands and the activities on Town Hill, to the childhood activities where everyone comes together to get that first community feeling with your friends as you go to the groups here in the building. I just want to build that sense of community going forward, especially when so much of politics can be divided. I think that buildings like this can be a unifying force.
Great. Another disclosure, my wife works here in the library. Brian's wife works here in the library, so we might both have a bias on the importance of this building. So the library has both, on an annual basis, like every other department, a struggle for both their capital and their operating budget, where they're struggling like every other department to get their piece of the pie from the town for both their capital and their operating needs. As a soon to be former member of an advisory committee, how will you as a trustee use your experience to perhaps go to the select board and the advisory committee to perhaps get the appropriate funding to keep the library where it needs to be?
It's a really good question, and one that I think my perspective, having been in the larger town level budgetary consideration or discussions, will have that context on how we can frame our budgetary needs within the library, as well as how we can time those out. If it's better to delay a year because we know that there's other demands coming from other parts of the town, that context and having seen the larger budgetary constraints with the town over years will help us integrate the library's needs into the larger town picture, especially as everyone here is aware with the firehouse expenses, the possibilities of school expansion, just the many demands being put on the community now, understanding how to frame that, what is something that is feasible to work into the town budget versus what couldn't work in there. One of the jobs I had in the Air Force was running the space, cyber, and communications profile for the Air Force. So we put together an $11 billion budget. This one's a little bit smaller, but during that time frame, we were facing real money decreases as well. So understanding how to advocate for your needs within a declining budget structure is something that I've done before, and I think I'm well positioned to do it for the library.
Great. Thanks. Okay. I don't think any of us will have a hard time hearing Andy. This is Andy Bakanowski. He is running for the Board of Health as an incumbent. I believe that's correct.
Andy Bakanowski, been living in Norfolk for 32 years. Kids went through the KP system. My daughter is Dana-Farber, at Dana-Farber being a data manager, analysis person. I also know what she does. She works at home too, so it's been interesting. My son is a lab supervisor for additive engineering at Boston University, so it's 3D printing, but a lot more high tech. He also has another aside small business called On Farm out in Rehoboth. It's veggies, flowers, and other things. So my experience on town boards actually goes up to 27 years, over 27 years. 9 years on ComCom with a small break in between, 11 years on the Board of Assessors. Tony was my successor. Board of Health for the last 3, was on the Freeman Kennedy Building Committee. And if anybody has questions about history on that, maybe I can fill you in on that. Currently also on the Energy Committee in town, and we are progressing to try and get another $500,000 or so funding to do some energy work, which we can have with the stuff that we're larger than that after. But that has nothing to do with the Board of Health. My role on the Board of Health has changed what I thought it would be. And originally I was thinking, well, I've been in the environmental field for 45 years, so I think that the technical aspect I have what's been really kind of interesting is some of the development projects that are coming down the pike, Southwood especially, even though there's a lot of side stuff going on, bringing the contamination problems to the layman's terms and getting them to understand. There's a public involvement plan group who I help interpret some of this stuff for them. I used to be a licensed ag professional until 2 years ago, and that's in the state of Massachusetts you manage cleanups. So I did that for a very long time. I also had a bunch of other certifications, like well operator. My background is geology, and I spent most of my first 5 years looking for water in New York and New England. So that was kind of how things started. And then I went to another. If you're on the Facebook, you probably see pictures of the drone, pictures I've taken of the fire station, a few other things. And I like to say that's what I do now is I fly a drone. I do a little more than that, but it's easier for people to understand that. So the challenges the Board of Health has seen over the past year and a half have actually been food related because we have new staff on board with the departure of Wade, who was the sanitarian who used to do the septic system design and review. He's been replaced by Matt Tanis, and then there's another gentleman, John Robertson, who that position is basically the food agent. Goes around and does health checks and inspections in restaurants and stuff like that. It's been an eye-opener to the point where it's like, I never thought I'd have to figure this stuff out. But in the last year and a half reading the regulations on food, and it's just mind-blowing what's expected. I'm not going to say the town is backwards, but there's been reluctance to try and really embrace some of this stuff because the standard line is we've never done this before. Why do we have to do it? It's like, well, everybody else has been doing it. So this is something that we have to manage carefully. We have to walk and make sure it's not. I'll be the first to admit that we've pissed a few people off, and it happens. It happens. I'm being honest because that's what it's. That's 5 minutes, isn't it?
Not bad.
We have a long-standing relationship where Andy comes to town meeting to speak on the energy committee and asks for 20 minutes. I tell him he can have 5 and he takes 15. So I may get some payback here tonight. We'll find out. Andy, I have been seeing lately in the towns where I work a great deal of Board of Health regulation regarding tobacco. Everything from flavored cigarettes to e-cigarettes to now what Brookline has done about essentially sunsetting cigarettes overall. What is your view on this, and how has the board been viewing tobacco regulation?
I would say that we are pretty status quo, for lack of a better word, meaning that there's going to be no changes. I know there's more enforcement going on right now, basically, so you know that there's underage plants that go into stores and try to buy cigarettes. That's essentially what they do, and it's essentially a sting operation. And these stores all know this is going to happen at some point. And so far, this past year, they've been pretty good. I think we've had 1 out of probably 24 inspections. But in terms of looking to ban vaping products or any chewing tobacco, stuff like that, that really hasn't come up because there's just not enough interest. And no one has really complained about that. But I think the enforcement has been sufficient enough to make sure that underage kids aren't getting it. But then again, it doesn't mean that you can have a 21, 25-year-old go and buy for a teenager. So that's something that maybe that's the next step.
Okay. Last question for you. This town has, with the exception of a very small area right in the center of town, has no sewer. We are predominantly a septic town. I'd like to know, A, what are the challenges of a Board of Health with respect to aging systems? And second, what is your view on potentially bringing more sewer into town, including the downtown and the Palmville area?
I'm going to go to the right here, Kevin. And I'm coming back to the left. I sent Kevin an article from Mashpee a couple weeks ago to handle 456 homes. They have a nitrogen issue, and that's impacting some of their kettle holes and ponds. $81 million for the collection system alone, and this is actually phase 2. The technology exists when it comes down to the money. That's what it is. There's technology improvements in homeowner systems that you can probably put a smaller, less expensive system and less excavation. But then again, the expectation is that the homeowner is going to have to maintain these. It's not a case of it's not a second line, but it's right now it's money. It's has nothing to do with the Board of Health, but it's money. I mean, these systems are so costly. One of my jobs, besides taking pictures of some construction projects, is I have actually been a technical reviewer on quite a few permitting, because that's another habit of work in my career. I also worked for corrections for 20 years, so I know the system down here very well, because I did some permitting as well as other other situations across the state, not only for some of the counties, 128 for example. And the cost is crazy. The cost is absolutely crazy. And that's the first thing you gotta get over with. It's like, if you wanna do this, you have to go all in, you can't do it halfway. So.
All right.
Jay, may I ask a question from the audience?
Really
All
doing
right, we'll
that.
talk offline.
Why don't you, I mean, if you wanna put something down on paper, I
Okay,
practice.
comment? I'm gonna have a heart. Oh, no, you can. You just write them on a card. And then we'll bring it
Yeah,
up.
this is not a public hearing
May I
or
write
a
a
public
question?
forum.
Yeah,
There's
ask us. All right. Andy, do you mind waiting a minute?
a process to that.
I'll keep talking.
I'm gonna make it very, very faster, Jim. And then, if you need further explanation,
You're usually very clear.
No.
Well, Jen's working on stuff. I mean, my opinion is, and I think Rob can verify this, is that when the system up on the hill was put in, my position always has been that if the pipe passes a house, everyone should connect into it because it's a money maker. As we'll see in town meeting in the few weeks, that the town's going to be asked to pony up a few tens of thousands of dollars to cover the operating costs of that system. I get no benefit from it. Unless you're looking up there, you get no benefit either. And again, it comes down to money. I like to say yes, I'm a technical guy, but at the same time, I understand money, and it's a huge obstacle for a lot of things that the town has to look at.
I'm going to reserve judgment on the question of
This is a
sewer,
real thing.
which I
It's not
have strong feelings myself. I'll talk to Kevin on. So this is a question, I didn't know these even exist. Have you thought of, and first of all, what are they, but have you thought of fire toilets? I don't know what they are.
Incinerator toilets. I went to an Airbnb, he didn't want to pay, beautiful place.
And again, they use what, I'm sorry, I didn't know it was fire,
That's what we call them in my family.
There's a house up on Seekonk Street that they have a composting toilet that basically heats up the wastewater, and they basically get dust by the time you're
So
done.
that's an alternative technology, that's a whole other separate thing.
But I'm saying that could be done for downtown. Just a thought.
I'd like to say that everybody has a good conscience and
Then,
question.
how about we save that meeting question for another forum?
Sounds
Like an agenda item on the next board.
Okay.
Okay, so, we've got three, please come to the town meeting too. Andy always delivers important information.
That's
That's gonna take then come to town meeting because that's gonna take a half an hour off of